BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello there, I'm Liam McLeod, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. And what a game we've got in store tonight.
Has Butland got another big moment? Here goes Yanda. It's over the bar! It's over the bar, and Rangers go through to the Europa League quarter-finals.
Rangers host Athletic Bilbao in the Europa League quarter-finals. Can the hosts produce more continental tournament magic at Ibrox and recover from more domestic disappointment?
It's a goal!
It's a goal.
Martin Boyle was onside, and he has given Hibernian a 2-goal advantage. The Inquisition goes on the Rangers backline.
Defeat by Hibs meant a record 5th successive home defeat, and it prompted tough words from the manager.
I need to go and make changes, and I will make changes. I'm not scared to make changes. So I need a team that's going to be prepared. Might not look good in the eye, but a team that's willing to put their body on the line.
We'll bring you all the build-up to the big match right here.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
So thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Scottish Football Podcast, and hopefully you're subscribing along the way as well. We're with you every single day of the week. I'm joined for this special Europa League preview edition by the Times Scottish football correspondent Michael Grant and Joshua Barrie from the Rangers Review. Gentlemen, hello.
Hey, Liam.
Michael, how are you getting on? Are you getting some time off over Easter, or is it just full pelt as always?
It's been full pelt, but very, very stupidly, I'm off next week when the Bilbao game should be taking me to Spain, but I blundered there.
Bad timing, that one. Joshua, bad timing for Rangers again on Saturday. A really disappointing, not just result, but performance as well against Hibs.
Yeah, but also quite disappointing, but also quite expected. 5 home defeats in a row, it does get to a point where, there was a worrying expectation surrounding that second half. I thought where there was normally when Rangers lose a game at home, there'd be a bit of crisis, but I think it's just happened all too frequently recently, hasn't it? So big ask for them. I, unlike Michael, have not taken next week off, so I do get to go to Bilbao. But depending on the first leg, we will see to what extent Rangers are still in this tie. In Europe, you never know. They are a different team.
They are. It's been a hugely strange season for many of our clubs, actually, when you think of Hibs and Aberdeen and what they've been doing in the league, and Rangers, obviously, they've really set the Europa League alight as well, finishing in the top 8, got it through to the last 16 as a result of that, and that wonderful win in Turkey. We've got a lot to talk about with regards to the match with the guys, this first leg, with, as they were saying, the return coming in Spain next week. Firstly, Joshua, how big a blow is it for Rangers that they're going to be minus John Souttar and Mohamed Diamonde through suspension for this one?
Yeah, big. Both will be a big miss. Souttar obviously was very good, in particular away at Fenerbahce. And Rangers don't have an abundance of central defensive options that, well, I guess they do in one sense, but Barry Ferguson wants to go for that experience. We've not seen Clinton and Ciala much, not seen Rafael Fernandez. I suspect you'll see a continuation of that back five with probably Dujon Sterling at right wing back, and Mohamed Diamandes is in many ways kind of epitomised this team, much like a lot of these Rangers players who look much more comfortable in games where they're going up against a higher level of opposition. But I think the game state suits them a bit better. They see a little bit less of the ball, getting it in different situations. And he was, especially away in Istanbul, he was a big player. So not ideal. And given that Barry Ferguson was quite insistent that there would be a series of changes for Thursday night, I'm intrigued to see what he does with his options, because I wouldn't expect, even outside the Souttar and Diamande, wouldn't expect the same starting 11 from the weekend based on what he had to say post-match.
They have, Michael, saved their best performances generally for Thursday nights in the Europa League. There have been the odd exceptions, of course, the victory at Celtic Park recently, but generally Europe has been their shining light, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, and it's been strange really, because that's been the case for almost 3 or 4 seasons now, and over that period the team has changed, the manager's changed, but they've been consistently a strong Europa League team. Not a Champions League team. We saw that in the one campaign that they got into the group and they were out of their depth, but they have consistently surprised and delivered in the Europa League, and that includes this season. You look at it and you would think that Athletic Bilbao would be a step too far, but how many times have we thought that? And they've done it against teams that you thought that they're going to be this is going to be too strong for them. Athletic Bilbao are interesting and they're strong. I don't think they're brilliant though, Liam. It has to be said. I mean, I watched their game against Villarreal at the weekend. It was fairly flat, to be honest with you. Their last 3 games have been 1-0, 0-0, and 0-0. So I'm not sure there's going to be an awful lot of goals at Ibrox, now, and that's probably going to suit Rangers because not only are they a good Europa League team, they've been a good away Europa League team, and they might think, well, if we're still in this game after the first leg, then we've got a fighting chance in Bilbao next week.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. When you, Joshua, think back to when Walter Smith was in charge, the second time in particular, there were many occasions where Rangers would be at home first and they would draw 0-0 and you think, they've spurned an opportunity there, but they then went away and produced the goods.
Yes, yeah, and obviously the 2022 Europa League run was more about getting games back to Ibrox, wasn't it? But what I would say on that point, Liam, which I think you outlined correctly, is that Barry Ferguson's biggest influence, you'd expect, in terms of European games, navigating them, is Walter Smith. And you look at what he did with that Fenerbahce game at home. I think previous Rangers managers might have wanted to go out and first get the first goal, whereas I think Barry Ferguson will be more comfortable trying to focus on defensive solidity first and hitting Athletic Bilbao in transition. I think Michael raises some interesting points about their goal scoring. They have this carrot of a home final, which I guess puts extra pressure on the game too. The concern would be that they obviously finished top of the group stage. They have quite an abundance of options. They've scored the most set-piece goals of any team in the Europa League, which will not be music to the ears of Rangers fans who have seen them concede quite a lot of set-piece goals as of late. I think tomorrow night will just be about, can we keep this alive for next week? Can we give ourselves a chance? As opposed to what you've maybe seen at the past in Ibrox, which is, can we go out and hit them quickly and get a couple of goals ahead? Because I do think Bilbao are probably a step above the majority of teams Rangers have played in this Europa League over the past few years. To
the point that Mourinho said in his post-match media conference after Rangers had knocked them out, that they've effectively, Rangers, got no chance of beating Bilbao, who, like Rangers, went to Istanbul and beat Fenerbahce. That was in December in the league phase. So Mourinho, Michael, doesn't give Rangers much of a hope of reaching the semis. Do you?
Listen, I give them a hope. I mean, I was there when Mourinho talked about that, and it was just classic Jose, wasn't it? I mean, there was the kind of eye rolling and the kind of sighing, and the conspiracy theory dropped in that basically UEFA wanted Bilbao to get to the final. If you speak to people around Bilbao, they always see themselves as underdogs who are kind of, historically on the receiving end of the wrong end of the stick, basically, because the authorities want, or the establishment wants Real or Barca to do well. So I think they kind of chuckle at the idea of anybody doing favours for them. Listen, there's no question that it is a bit of a pressure and an issue for Bilbao to try and get to the final. It would be what an occasion that would be for them. I mean, they're not a club that traditionally gets to finals in Europe, but to get there in their own stadium would just be absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, no, I don't think they feel they're getting any kind of tailwind from the referees or from UEFA to get there. They'll have to earn it. And yeah, no, listen, I do give Rangers a chance. Having watched Bilbao, I thought, this is the kind of game that I could see Rangers just digging in and holding on. But then again, the Rangers' form is so flaky and so unimpressive, really, that it's hard to have too much optimism for them, because they let their supporters down so often.
We're going to hear now from the Rangers camp. We are recording this before Barry Ferguson's pre-match press conference, which is taking place shortly in Glasgow. But let's hear what the Rangers boss has had to say to the media ahead of the first leg.
We get in on Monday morning and let's just say we had a long chat. And I heard my views, so did my staff, and so did the players, which I was happy with. Because I've said before, I think we've been too quiet. So it was good. And then we got to training Monday, obviously, to prepare for this game.
From what the players said to you, you say you're happy with that. Could you give us a sort of inclination as to what you got back from them that's made you a bit more positive?
I would rather keep it in-house, if I'm being honest with you. But I just thought at the time was right to go and spend a bit of time with them. Go through a lot of things that I'm clearly wasn't happy with. And it's good to get their point of view as well, because we really need to get to the bottom of it, because it's been a real issue. But as I said, I came out of the meeting, training was bubbly on Monday. That's what I want. I don't want them to mop me about and being unhappy. There was a lot of things said. And then again, we had a good training session on Tuesday. We're totally clear in what way we're going to approach the rest of the season, not just tomorrow night. And today's session, again, I come away from really happy with.
Can you give us an idea as to how you're going to approach the rest of the season then?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. You'll see 75 minutes before. You'll see when the team comes out, and you'll see when the game starts.
And just finally from me, it is $1 million question, but are you able to, you've been at the door for a couple of months now, are you able to put a finger on why you're getting these mixed performances, the highs to the really low lows?
I've got a good idea, and that's why I done a lot of thinking over the weekend, and that's why I held a real good meeting with my group of players and my staff. And as I said, there was a lot of things that came out which was good, because I want people to be opinionated. I want people to debate with each other, and I found it really helpful. And now, hopefully going forward, I'll start to see a bit more consistency, because that's something that we've certainly not showed over the season. We've done it, played really well, if I'm being honest with you, in some games. In other games, it's just been a total different team. And that's something that, as I said, that hopefully we've got to the bottom of. We can move on. That's in the past now, and we need to obviously look forward to the future.
Right, Joshua, there have been so many problems across the board for Rangers this season in the team. One of them recently, and we know he's a top goalkeeper, has been mistakes which we weren't really seeing last season from Jack Butland. He's had a spell out the team as well, but to 2nd of February was the last time Rangers kept a clean sheet, which is quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's remarkable. I think it's 2 goals. They've conceded 2 goals in 7 of their last 8 games, which again is not a stat that you want to hear going into a Europa League quarter-final, is it? Yeah, Butland, it really came to a head at Ibrox at the weekend, whereby, again, not to be cliche, but he kind of just epitomises this team. You look back to the previous round and the penalty exploits against Fenerbahce, and I think people didn't give him enough credit for his performance actually in the first leg, partly because he knocked out one of his teammates inside 30 minutes, which requires some criticism. But he kept that game at 3-1, made a couple of big saves late on. But then in between, sandwiched either side of that European tie where he's been really good generally, he throws one in against Dundee, throws one in against Hibs, he threw one in against Motherwell in Barry Ferguson's first home game. And what I would say about Ferguson's post-match comments is they didn't necessarily protect the goalkeeper. Maybe that's what you think is required at this moment in time. For me, Liam, I think his kicking as well has been a bit of an issue for Rangers for a period of time, and that especially came out in Old Firm games. But there's been too many errors as of late to say it's an isolated incident. It's not been. Now, will he still play in the first leg in particular? I would be very, very surprised if one of those series of changes Barry Ferguson alluded to was Liam Kelly in place for Jack Butland. But for the first time in his Rangers career, it feels like the criticism is far louder than any praise in return. And I think on the basis of form as of late, he's made too many errors, and that's where the noise comes from.
Where does the fragility come from, Michael, do you think? Particularly at Ibrox just now?
For the team, do you mean, or for Butland?
The team.
Yeah. I think defensively they're too brittle. I mean, you saw it took one pass to take them out for the Hibs second goal. Abita, I think it was, hit a long ball, and they were completely static. They were completely taken out by one pass cutting through them. I mean, there's this stat doing the rounds about Butland conceding, is it 101 goals and 100 appearances? I think I haven't checked whether that's accurate or not. Is that right? It seems an awful lot.
I've not got that in front of me, Granty, I'm afraid, so. But I'll take your word for it.
Josh will know. It's certainly been doing the rounds on social media. That seems an awful lot. But, the point I was going to make was, he hasn't made 101 blunders, So for all that his form is, reasonably spectacularly kind of dropped in the last sort of year or so, you could argue as well that he's not getting the protection that a Rangers goalkeeper needs. But I'm like Josh. I'd be surprised if they dropped him, if Barrie dropped him for the first leg, because that's such a profound move. I mean, Butland's not out of contract at the end of the season, is he? I mean, he's still seen as a bit of an asset for Rangers, and a guy that we're talking about, or people around the club were kind of talking about selling for a decent fee.
Yeah, and talking about an England call-up.
An England call-up a year and a bit ago. And I think if you dropped him for a game like this, then, is there any way back for Jack Butland really as a credible number one at Rangers if he's not been picked for a big game? So I think Butland will stay in goal. I think there's too much. The fullbacks haven't been impressive defensively all season. And I think that the centre-halves, they can have good games, but also I think most strikers would fancy themselves against the Rangers centre-halves almost regardless of the composition, whether it's Suter, Balogun, Proper, and we know Suter can't play tonight, but they've all had their moments, let's be honest, this season.
Yeah, given the result in Istanbul, then the win at Celtic Park, which came after the home leg against Fenerbahce, coming back from well down at Dens Park, and obviously Kilmarnock as well, right at the start. There have been periods there, Josh, where, I'm not sure what the fans have been saying about it, but it must have been going through Barry Ferguson's mind and the rest of his coaching team that we could get this job permanently. I just wonder if what happened, regardless of what happens in the next two legs here, and they've got Pittodrie right in the middle of it as well, does that defeat against Hibs there at the weekend end all talk of Barry Ferguson being installed as the new permanent manager of Rangers with the respective new owners coming in as well?
Quieter than it was maybe the week before, but what Barry to be in with a realistic conversation of getting the next job, and if you're new owners, you're looking at this. You're not looking at it romantically. You're looking at who's going to be the best fit for the club. Now, there's a lot to be done, namely getting the sporting director in first. Rangers have European qualifiers in mid-July. There's not a lot of time to do quite a lot of work. But Rangers' biggest issue, and every time, whether it be this podcast, Liam, or whatever, and this, how are Rangers? Why can they win in Europe but they can't win domestically? I think comes down to two different key arguments. One, they're a bit of a moments team who don't have an overall alignment plan that they've been working on for a number of years. They've jumped around from game style to game style. They've had different people at the head of football operations, which is why they're going back to the sporting director model. And number two, they're not a team who look comfortable dominating the ball. So I think Barry Ferguson deserves quite a lot of credit for going to back five and changing things up and going to win away at Parkhead. It shouldn't be lost, the achievement of that, because Rangers hadn't done it with fans in a number of years, especially after that Thursday night. But the next Rangers manager, I think the number one requirement needs to be, what are you going to do with the ball? How are you going to... Games like Hibs at the weekend, when a team... Hibs are not exactly a quintessential defensive team in the Scottish Premiership because of the form team in the Scottish Premiership. But basically, how do you dominate games with the ball? Because it's not an issue for them when they have 20, 30, 40% of possession, as they did against Fenerbahce and Celtic. But give this Rangers team the ball and say, can you dominate for 90 minutes. They just haven't had a habit of doing that in the last 2 to 3 years. So that for me needs to be the biggest question going into the next managerial hunt. And so far, I don't think Barry Ferguson, the performances under Barry Ferguson have shown that is an outstanding quality. Is that fair to say? I don't know, but that's how I would summarise the argument so far.
Liam, I think Josh's description of a moments team is really valid. You know, I mean, if you look at the Old Firm game, it was going to be a draw until Ligamani's goal. You know, if you look at the Dundee game, it takes a great strike by Tavernier, a great strike by Lawrence to turn that game around. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, but you know that's kind of moments of individuality rather than specifically coaching. I mean, if I was making a case for Ferguson, I would worry that from the 7 games he's had so far, there's only really been the 2 that have been consistently impressive. You know, which are arguably 2 biggest ones of all, which was Fenerbahce away and the Old Firm game, and those delivered such seismic results for the club, and it, you know, transformed the perceptions. But in all the other performances, either they've given, you know, they came back great from Kilmarnock and Dens, but conceding 2 goals again. You know, the Motherwell game, the Hibs game, Fenerbahce at home was a defeat, 2-0 defeat. You know, they won on penalties, terrific. But you know, I think like Josh that the new owners, if and when they do come in, they'll be calm and they'll be dispassionate about this, and they have to be. Can't be emotional. And I think that would probably mean that they'll have their own ideas about a manager that won't be Barry Ferguson.
Right, before we leave you for today, let's just have a little bit of a closer look at Athletic Club Bilbao, who, and I just finished watching the highlights of their Copa del Rey victory last season. They won on penalties, beating Mallorca, the Cartuja and Seville, and it was a 1-1 draw after extra time. The scenes of wild celebration that greeted their first major silverware in 4 decades were quite something to behold. And as Josh mentioned earlier, they're of course hosting this season's Europa League final. So they're looking to top that by winning for the first time a European trophy. They've been to the final twice before, and that was in the late 70s, and then in 2012 when they were beaten by Atletico Madrid, fellow Spaniards. That final in Bucharest under Ernesto Valverde, who was in charge of that Copa del Rey victory last season. It's his 3rd spell as Bilbao manager. It's already the most successful spell that he's enjoyed there. They are a team, Michael, that don't concede many goals. They've got the joint best defence in La Liga this season, along with Atletico. So this is going to be a tough nut for Rangers to crack, isn't it?
It will be, yeah. As you say, they don't give away many. 3 clean sheets in a row at the moment. Defensively very sound and solid. I mean, the stars of the team are obviously the Williams brothers, Nico and Inaki. Nico's highly fancied by Arsenal, maybe even expected to join Arsenal in the summer. He's got a buyout clause of just under 50 million. You know, people around the club are saying that he's not quite caught fire this season as may have been expected on the back of the Euros when he was outstanding. Had a terrific tournament in Spain's victory, scored the opening goal against England. But he has, you know, when he's on fire, which he was in the last round against Roma, you know, he can be unplayable. His brother on the other side, 8 years older, Inaki. But I think, you know, I suppose that would be the interesting thing about Ferguson's team tactically, is that how you cope with 2 wingers and the fear of your fullbacks or your wingbacks being isolated against these 2, especially Nico, because they're both incredibly quick. And the other guy that's worth mentioning is Sanse in the middle. In the middle of those 2. He's actually the top scorer, Spanish attacking midfielder. He's kind of been out of the side a little bit with injury issues recently, but is expected to start. And I think he kind of helps knit together that 3 behind the centre forward. And the Villarreal manager, you know, when I watched the game the other day, they were saying that the Villarreal manager said that Athletics attacking players are as strong as any in La Liga. They've not really shown it in the last couple of games, but I do think that they could potentially be a handful for Rangers, obviously. But I've kind of got a feeling this might be quite a low-scoring first leg. I don't know why. I just feel that we're not going to see many goals at Ibrox. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, the Rangers supporters will be hoping there's plenty goals from their team, but the defensive record of Bilbao suggests that they're going to have to take any opportunity that comes their way. Unai Simon, who's the current Spanish number one goalkeeper, 48 times capped. He helped Spain through to the Nations League finals in the recent international break. I think he's just one behind Iker Casillas when it comes to winning penalty shootouts. He's not going to play, though. He doesn't play the cup ties or the vast majority of the European games. Julian Aguirre-Zabala will be the keeper at Ibrox, and he pulled off a penalty save in their shootout win in the Spanish Cup victory last season. He's not a massive downgrade at all, and they've just got strengths all over the park. And you've got to look out for Danny Vivian as well, who's one of the centre-backs, can also play on the right-hand side. Actually, because their defence was so good last season as well, Josh, he forced his way into the Spanish Euro 2024 squad. They've got maybe 3 or 4 really top class players that will start the game, including Sanset. I think he comes into the team as well.
Yeah, Sanset's the big one, isn't it? Because, as Michael says, of the goals he scores. And they're an interesting team because I believe of the 19 goals they scored in the Europa League, something like 15 or 16 are from crosses, but only 5 have been headed finishes. So a lot of cutbacks, real variation in what they can do from wide areas if they're not scoring directly through one of the Williams brothers. The one weakness they maybe have, if you're looking at it optimistically, you look at the goal Roma scored recently against wing-backs, sometimes the Williams brothers are maybe given a little bit more license to stay up the pitch. But obviously the mitigation is that if you don't score when one of your wing-backs goes forwards, then you have to defend them in space. But loads and loads of solutions from out wide. And obviously if you attack primarily from out wide, you're losing the ball in less dangerous areas than if you're focusing on going through the centre of the team. So the fact that their centre forwards, I think it's Sinadi is the forward who's been playing as of late. You can tell me if I've ruined that pronunciation, Liam. But he is almost like what would you call it? He's not the direct attacking threat. He's like the decoy, and you see it from set pieces as well. Quite often, they love playing against zonal marking teams defensively from set pieces, which again I think is a bit of a worry for Rangers. But it's the runs of Sanset from the edge of the box, the direct threats from either winger that I think pose the biggest threat to Rangers. So you presume they'll line up in their back 5. They're obviously missing Diamande and Suter, as mentioned. Maybe Hadji comes into that number 10 spot. I would also like to see Hamza Egeman play again as that number 9. Interesting to see if Cyril Dessers is one of those changes that Ferguson referenced at the weekend.
Yeah, we shall see. Gorka Gudizeta has been the kind of main man leading the line, but he's only got 1 goal in his last 18 games. We shall see how they will line up. We'll see how Rangers line up on Sports Sound this evening ahead of the big match on BBC Radio Scotland. My thanks to Michael Grant and to Josh Barrie for joining me on this edition of the Scottish Football Podcast. Remember, we're here with new episodes bright and early every day, so to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Big game, Rangers against Athletic Bilbao, live on Sports Sound. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff. The programme live on BBC Radio Scotland from 6. Bye for now.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
It caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.